Everyone, just wanted to do a follow-up video to our training session yesterday. At the end of the listing presentation training session, we did a look at how to gather your own stats versus the stats of the other members of the board. And I wanted to just do a video that would help you understand how to work your way through that. In this video today, we're going to learn how to download all of the trades out of Paragon, work with them in Excel so that we can understand what our own stats look like, and we can create a bit of a comparative versus some of the people that we know we might be competing against on listing presentations. So as you can see, I'm just on the home screen of Paragon right now, and I'll be walking you through the process that I've used to do this in the past. And it's a fairly easy process. It'll be about 10 minutes here, and we'll walk through everything you'll need for this. You'll obviously need to be able to get on Paragon, and then you'll also need Excel installed on your computer, Microsoft Excel. You might have a different version than I do, so it might mean that you have to navigate Excel a little bit differently, but all of the functions should still work as long as you have a somewhat modern version of Excel. So the first thing here is obviously we're just going from the dashboard into Paragon. And I'm going to do a search and do a multi-class search so that I get every property available in a particular region. So I do the multi-class search, and I'm going to just look at all of the sold properties, and I want to see do some stats work on the sold properties in the Annapolis Valley for this year. So in the firm date area, I'm going to go to year to date. So year to date, there's been 959 reported sold properties that have gone firm. So I run a search on that, and you'll see that my Paragon spreadsheet that I default to is one that I've chosen because it includes all the data that I typically will use in the spreadsheet that I'm going to be working with. I don't have to do the same sort of searches as you guys do as much, where I'm looking at the pictures right off of this screen. So I'm just going to walk you through how you would potentially create this spreadsheet. If you go to reports here, once you've got your results called up, and you open up the spreadsheets tab, you will have a number of what are called MLS defined spreadsheets. You click on any of them and you can save them as the view that you would like, or you can just simply have it be a view that pops up. So you can see I've already adjusted this one a little bit. So I'm going to go to MLS defined spreadsheet 9. And you'll see that this looks probably more familiar to you. You've got the listing pictures here, you've got the class, etc., etc. But as we scroll across, all you have is the listing agent. So we see the listing agent. And what I want is to be able to download all of the trades with both the listing agent and the selling agent so that I can get stats on both of them. At the very least, this would work for you, this one that we already have, but I'm just going to walk you through how you can download or call up different information here. So what we want to do here is we want to actually go to customize once we have our results, and we want to click on fields. And if I start to look for the listing agent, you'll see that the member is already in here, and then other than that, we only have CREA ID. And if I wanted to find the selling agent, when I hit selling, it doesn't bring me to anything because we're in this group called listing. So the listing detail is all I'm searching for in terms of items or fields that I can look at. However, because we know we're looking at sold properties, we know that there is a selling agent involved. And so when I change the group to agent, you'll see there is selling member agent name. And I want to go ahead and add that over to my list here. So I'm going to move that up so that it's right beside my listing member here. And now, when I save this, you'll see that my spreadsheet includes both the listing member and the selling member. Okay, makes sense? One other thing that I noticed that we're missing here is that I want to look at sold properties, and all I have is the listing price, not the sold price. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to customize the fields, and I'm going to go, and this one is in the listing data. So I'm going to put, pardon me. I'm going to put selling, and I am going to put that selling price in there so that I have the data coming down about the selling price on all these properties. And you'll see there's other groups as well. So if you want to know which office was involved, again, you could do market share or statistical work for your particular office. And there are other fields that you can pull up in features categories, and teams as well. So You can certainly call up any of those. You'll see that I've still got selling in there. So some of them don't have a ton of different fields that you can load, but some of them have plenty there. So anyways, I've added in selling price, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now you can see I've got selling price, and that's on the far right of my sheet here. So I'll move that over because I want it to be a little more accessible, and I'll put it right beside listing price. So now I have the listing price and the selling price. And once I've done that, I've got all the data I need. I've got the selling member and the listing member. I've got the list price and the selling price. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to download all of this information. And download is actually an export. So if I go to the export button here and I click export to CSV, I'm going to export all of the listings, which is what I want to do. And so I'm going to hit export. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a download for me down here of all of the listings that have gone through so far in the Annapolis Valley this year to date. So sometimes it takes a minute. It's not a huge file, but it can take a little bit of time depending on the speed of the internet that you're working on. So once I do that, I just click on it and I'm going to open it up, and you'll see that I've got all of this data in here, but it's kind of messy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm not sure what's happened here, so I'm just going to delete that line. Because I think that's going to screw up a lot of what we're working on. But you can see that we should have all 948, I guess, trades now that have happened this year that have been reported properly. And so if I go down to the bottom of my data here, sorry, 958 is what we were at. So that's you can see that we've got a line for each of the trades that have happened, and in that line is a bunch of data. Right? So not super useful right now because you'll see that it's kind of messy data. If I wanted to sort or organize it, it's possible, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what I want to do actually is I want to turn this into what's called a table. So for me, I have a ribbon at the top of my Excel where I have this insert menu. You might have only the menu bar up here where you can have to actually click on the term insert, and then you would insert a table as well. Okay, so I want to insert a table. I'm just going to click on the table, and it says, do you want to use all of this data that you have? I definitely do. And then it says, does your table have headers? Mine, in this case, does. It comes down with a header line, so it's a description of each column. And so I'm going to say yes. So we've got it now turned into a table, and I can sort the table by any of these columns. So if you click the little drop-down menu, I can have it go by ascending or descending order there. I can filter out certain prices or certain types or anything like that, but I'm not quite where I want to get to yet. It's even easier to use this data when we take that table and we do what's called summarize it with a pivot table. Okay, so I could have gone right to this step, but I like to turn it to a table first. So in this case, I'm going to just go ahead and insert a pivot table, or if you're on the table menu, you can summarize with a pivot table. It's going to open up a new sheet at the bottom. You'll see that in a second. Just leave the name there. And I've opened up sheet 1, and now I'm working on a pivot table. And pivot tables essentially organize data that's in a large data set into groups, categories, whatever you want it to be. So you'll see when I start working with it. So what I want to do is I want to understand what my stats or what the stats I work with are compared to some of the other people in my board or area. So again, when you want to work with different types of data, like let's say I wanted to work only with higher priced properties, I really should just pull down only properties that are a certain price or above. Or if I wanted to work with properties that are just simply a specific area instead of an entire board, I should be limiting that in Paragon before I do the download or the export. But in this case, I did want all of the valley. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say the stuff that I want to organize by is listing number. So I move that into rows, and what it does is it creates a new row for everyone who has been the listing agent on a property that's sold in the Annapolis Valley so far this year. So you can see that not everyone is an Annapolis Valley member. For example, B is someone who works out of Halifax, but she sold a property in the AVNS region, so she's going to show up here as well. And then what I want to do is I want to get a bunch of values attached to each of those people. So for example, one of the values that I want is I want the listing price. And what I do when I add that into values is I say for this listing member, Erin, what is the listing price that she typically will list at? But what it's done is it's summed them all. So I'm going to go ahead and click the little I next to it, and I want to know the average listing price that Erin usually lists at. So Erin Daniels' average listing price is $198,920. Right? And then the next thing I want to do is I want to put another column in where I look at the selling price. And so again, it's created a sum for me. So I want to go ahead and change that to average. And her average selling price is 193,380, right? So pardon me, 193,980. So we know that she sells for a certain percentage of what her actual listing price is, right? So now we know what the average is for everyone in each of these columns. And you can see you get some wonky numbers here. So you can actually change the columns by highlighting the two columns at the top in the letters. And come back to the home tab, and I just go ahead and make these currency so that it looks like numbers, and I remove a couple of decimal points because I don't really care about the pennies. And to me, it looks a little cleaner and neater that way. So that makes sense for everybody, I hope. All right, now the next thing I want to do, and when I'm clicked anywhere on the data here, I get this little toolbar that helps me with pivot table fields, is I want to actually do some math between what the ratio is that she typically sells at so that I can compare Erin to my own ratio. So I click on Pivot Table Analyze, and over here in Fields, Items, and Sets, you'll see there's the ability to put in a calculated field. If you're not working on the same version of Excel, you'll be able to find this in the Pivot Table menu as a calculated field, and that's exactly what I want to insert. So in this case, I'm going to call the field list sale ratio. And the formula for that I want is I just simply take the selling price, and I double click it to insert, and then I divide that, which is a slash, by the listing price. And I go ahead and click OK. And you can see that it's returned a result for everyone here. But the result isn't very helpful because it thought I was looking for a dollar value, because these two were already in dollar values, when in fact what I'm looking for is a percentage. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this column. I'm back on the home bar there, and I'm going to say, what's the percentage instead of the dollar value? So dollar value to percentage. Okay? And then actually in this case, I'm going to add in a decimal point, so that I can get even a little bit more precise. So you can see that Erin Daniels sells her properties for an average of 97.5%. Adam Smith looks like he didn't sell a ton of properties, but sorry, I don't know that actually because I haven't done the count yet, but his average is 94.8%. So I do want to know how many they've sold as well. So what I can do is simply take the address and add that in. And you can see that again, it's tried to do a dollar amount for that. And this isn't a dollar amount, this is just a number. So I'm just going to change that. And I don't need the decimal points for numbers because they're complete trades. And you can see that it's counted the number of times Erin Daniels has been the listing agent associated with a property or property address on this sheet here. So 5 times you would have found Erin in the listing agent field. Now, important to remember is that it's only calculating who's in the listing agent 1 field. So if there are 2 listing agents, if Erin and Anthony had listed it together, and she was listing agent 1 and he was listing agent 2, Anthony would not have been counted on one of those. We're only looking at who listing agent number 1 is, or else we run the risk of double counting deals in our analysis here. So that's kind of how you do it, and then you can sort these by anything that you want as well. So if I were to come over to here and I were to right click or control click if you're on a Mac, and I want to sort the whole pivot table by this particular column, I could go ahead and just sort from largest to smallest. And now I know who's done the most transactions as listing agent 1 in the marketplace. Okay. So again, you can quickly get an idea of what your statistics look like, and then you can compare yourself to whoever else is in the market area that you're working in. Hope that was helpful. If you have more questions about pivot tables or anything like that, feel free to reach out. You can certainly find lots of other videos on YouTube on how to run a pivot table, and hopefully that was helpful for you in terms of calculating statistics for your listing presentation. Have a great day.